Today we'll be discussing an attack known as SMB Relay. So this attack relies on NTLM, which is discussed in more depth in another video. Now this attack depends mostly on SMB, and surprisingly, SMB does a lot more than you may think. But stick around and let's go through this together. It's Novice here, and in this video we'll learn about SMB Relay attacks and how to actually conduct one. So prior to digging into SMB relay attacks, I'd only looked at SMB as a file share protocol. But I was wrong. No, that's impossible. I'm never wrong. But apparently, it also functions as an RPC protocol. Now you may be wondering, what is RPC protocol? I was in your seats as well until I watched this video that you guys are watching right now. Now, RPC stands for Remote Procedure Call. This essentially means that you can call the equivalent of a function that is used in codes without it being on the same server or device. Now let's run an example. So there's a function on server A, and you can run that function on server B. Now that we've completed our little side quest, we can focus more in on SMB. So why is it so important that SMB functions as an RPC protocol? And this is because RPCs that control Windows could possibly be run over SMB. Not only that, SMB holds 3 very important secret shares. And these shares are C, admin, and IPC. Now C is a share that contains all of the files that are held on that computer, server, or device. Now admin gives access to the Windows directory that holds a lot of different processes that can be used to run other commands, and it pretty much holds everything that pretty much stands Windows up. And IPC gives the users control of the RPC communication. Now if any of these can be contained by or obtained by a malicious entity, then they would have the ability to fully control that device, which could then lead to domain access. Now that we've reviewed what can be done by getting access to SMB using a relay attack, let's actually use our test environment to run a relay attack. Now before starting, we'll actually have to check to see if SMB relay attack is even possible on this environment. So to do so, we'll run an nmap command that gives us the ability to see if SMB signing is enabled and required. And that's nmap-security equals smb2-security-mode-p, in this case 445, which is the SMB port, and then finally the actual IP address of the target server. So once we run this, let me see if I didn't put this on. Oh, I did not. Okay, give me a quick second. All right, now we're back and we're gonna try this again. So as you can see here, what we want to focus on after this is run is specifically this message that comes here. So if you see something that says message signing enabled but not required, we are good. An SMB relay attack will work on here because SMB signing is not enabled. However, if you see something called SMB signing enabled but required, then it will not work as SMB is enabled and required. Therefore, it disrupts how this attack actually works. So with that knowledge now out of the way, I want to break down the process as to how this actually works. So first, we're actually going to use a tool called the responder, which will listen for broadcast when an incorrect SMB share is attempted in our environment. So whenever we're doing an SMB relay attack, the easiest way to go ahead and get an NTLM hash is to go through and do an incorrect SMB share. That then sends a multicast to any devices that know where that SMB share is, and our responder will act as if it does know that information. Then the responder will prompt our victim, in this case, to send us their NTLM hash information. And once they do that, we then send that NTLM hash information to a different tool known as Impacted NTLM Relay X. Now once it goes into NTLM Relay X, it essentially tries to go and see what the hash value can actually grab. So depending on the level of their privilege or access that they have on the domain or on their computer, we can do quite a number of things. So say for instance, well, in our own example, we're signed in right now into our workstation environment as our user, a local admin. Now, as a local admin, once we get the NTLM hash, we can then use that information to dump our SAM file. Now, the SAM file essentially holds the information for all the local users and their corresponding hashes. So once we have that, we then have a whole lot of hashes that we can either then crack or use for something different. Now, if you sign in as a local user, you might not have as much access as that, but you might have the ability to grab all of the username information and use that as you may. And if I were to grab that information, I might actually go ahead and use it in an ASRAP browsing attack to see if any of them are vulnerable there. But with that out of the way, we'll actually go through and show you how to do this. So before actually setting up a responder, what we'll need to do is go into the responder configuration file, which should be able to be found in etc responder and then responder.com. But let's see if I'm right. So we're actually going to do sudo nano and then etc responder.com. Let me type in the password here. Okay, now with that, we can actually view what's going on in our file here. So everything in its original state, everything is on here. However, to actually run this and then run NTLM Relay X, we do have to disable HTTP on here and SMB. So from on, just go ahead and change it to off. I've already done so you can't see it here, but that would be the process of events, and then you save it and you're done there. So let's go ahead and right out of there. Now we actually get to run responder. Now, responder is essentially going to listen in for any information that's sent on the network or within the domain. So to do so, we're actually gonna do sudo responder followed by -I, which pinpoints the interface that you're going to be using to actually listen to the traffic, and then followed by -V, D, and W. So D just stands for verbose mode, so it's going to give a lot more data and information that you can then see and use. D then stands for DHCP poisoning. Now this makes our device act as if it were a rogue DHCP server and respond to DHCP requests. And W stands for web proxy auto discovery. Now once we run this, we're essentially being nosy. We're being nosy on this network. We're listening for any traffic that goes through that for some reason sends an NTLM hash. And then once we see something like that, we actually grab that NTLM hash and then pass it on to the NTLM Relay X, which we will actually set up now. So to set up, I've said it so much my tongue is getting tied. To set up impacted NTLM Relay X, we'll just do it like this. So go ahead and hit sudo, and it's actually already here, so I don't have to do too much. So sudo impacted NTLM Relay X -T, and then followed by your target server, and then SMB2 support. So once you have that, you go ahead and press enter. Type in your own password here. Now it's saying that there's an error and the address is already in use. However, it does look like it is still listening out for when that NTLM hash is grabbed. So with that, we now just have to prompt the NTLM hash to be used or to be grabbed by the responder. And as I said before, to do that with SMB Relay, it can be as simple as typing in an incorrect share. So I'm pretty sure we have no shares on any of these. So we'll do something as test, and then we'll press enter. Now once that's done, we'll actually first compare what happens in responder. Go ahead and cancel this here. So essentially it says that the poison answer was sent to 10.0010 for my first domain, which is essentially what happened. Now, once they actually have that response, they then send that into NTLM Relay X, which then grabs that information, goes and dumps the local SAM hashes, and then gives it to us here so that we can see it. And with that, we actually have the information that we want from our SMB Relay Attack. Now there's multiple things you can do with an SMB Relay Attack. However, I just wanted to show an example of one of the things you can do, which is grab the SAM hashes. However, like I said, based on different privileges or different environments themselves, or maybe even you wanting to use SMB in a different way to grab different information, maybe start or stop a service, maybe even try to create a shell. There's a lot of different things that you can do using SMB Relay Attack. Now, that is it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed us going through explaining the SMB Relay Attack and how it works. Not only that, actually showing you how you can do it yourself. Now, like I said, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and there's a lot of different other NTLM relay attacks that I might speak about if I feel like it, who knows. But hopefully this gives you guys an idea of what it does and why it actually works, as well as why it's important to know the underlying reason as to why it is dangerous. Now, with that being said, that's it for me. So if you guys like the video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys mess with what I'm doing over here, go ahead and subscribe to see more. And if you dislike the video, please leave a comment in this. Please leave a comment in the comment section so I can know why, so that I can see it, try to improve, and make better content for you guys. But with all of that out of the way, that's it for me. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Novice out. Peace.